Hi, I'm Alan from Tiger Trading, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about Libra. And most of you probably already know Facebook is creating a stablecoin that's pegged to and fully backed by a basket of reserve currencies, and they're going to launch it on a permissioned blockchain that's going to involve them and 100 other nodes. So the obvious question here is this a wonderful gift of decentralization and a really exciting involvement of Facebook in a blockchain project, or is it a bunch of oligarchic technocrats trying to create their own reserve currency? It's probably a little bit of both. I err slightly on the side of oligarchic technocrats, but I'm going to try to leave most of my own dystopian concerns that are a blend of Snow Crash and Sovereign Individual out of the rest of this video. Let's say Libra gets off the ground, which it probably will. You're not going to do well betting against Facebook in most situations. In that case, I think it'll probably have really massive adoption. I think that it is entirely possible, and I've said before that if there's going to be an Ethereum killer, it'll require having a better native language than Solidity, which Move may be. And also it'll be surely pretty user-friendly, given what we know about Facebook. But also, in a lot of places, it will skip a step of a need to create reliable financial infrastructure for a lot of frontier developing markets. And it'll be a really good alternative to what people have already at home. And in a way that probably doesn't appeal as much to people in the US, I think that in a lot of places, the ability to use Libra will actually be a huge boon to their lives. Downside of this, and something that might keep it from getting off the ground, is that by doing so, they'd be undermining the sovereignty, probably, of the central banks and of the governments in a lot of countries. Now, the situation in which people actually adopt it, I don't think that the fact that it's not that decentralized is going to matter. I think that decentralization is only going to be something that people opt into when it provides an actual utilitarian benefit over being centralized. And that does happen in some situations. One would be if Facebook or Libra starts doing really dumb stuff that they have the ability to do because they have control over it. Another reason that the actual centralization of it could be a weakness is that I don't think that most regulatory bodies are going to be excited about this existing. Both if you look on the developed world side, we already have Republican Brad Sherman in Congress saying that he wants to ban all cryptocurrencies because it creates a threat to US hegemony, which it probably does. The US wants all the transactions to be happening through SWIFT so they can enforce sanctions. The US wants all major markets in oil, etc., to be denominated in US dollars. They want as much foreign debt as possible to be denominated in US dollars because it gives them a massive amount of influence in the world and it tethers a lot of the world to the performance of the US economy. So in a way, yeah, his argument's not wrong. Cryptocurrencies can undermine the US hegemony in the world. But in most situations, like with Bitcoin, they don't have anybody they can legislate against. They don't have anybody they can target and try to stop, and I think there's going to be a huge regulatory pushback on Facebook and on the attempt to get this off the ground, and I'm not sure it's going to happen unless they openly contradict that. So if it does get off the ground, I expect it'll probably be widely adopted and extremely successful. And it's something pretty exciting for a lot of people in emerging or in frontier markets who don't necessarily have the best financial infrastructure or don't have that much trust in financial infrastructure or the currency where they live. The way a currency is normally managed in a place like that is you have a central bank that has a bunch of reserves that is a basket of reserve currencies. They issue their own local currency. They hold a bunch of debt, or rather they issue a bunch of debt that is a combination of US dollar debt or potentially local currency debt. Now, in some cases, yuan debt, etc. And then in order to be able to maintain the stability of their currency, they have to have a reasonable balance of reserves. They have to keep their interest rates in a reasonable place relative to the interest rates of places like the US. And it becomes this really complicated thing. And also, if they do it wrong, it becomes something that can really harm the actual day-to-day lives of the people who live in that country. Now, if people have access to Libra, if you're in an emerging economy or if you're in a frontier economy, you can kind of pass that whole mechanism and have direct access to an ability to transact in a basket of reserve currencies, which many people may opt into. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of regulatory pushback on it and a lot more targeted and effective regulatory pushback than you can see on Bitcoin. And even if you go outside of the US, if you go into smaller emerging market economies, if you go into frontier economies, for the exact same reason I said before, where that's where a lot of the good use cases are, I think that most of those regulatory bodies probably won't be excited about Libra either, because it kind of can, in a way, undermine their sovereignty. The pushback against this from a regulatory perspective could be global, not just the US, and not just about defending US hegemony. So I do think there are a lot of great potential use cases for Libra. I think that it could see a lot of adoption if it manages to get off the ground, which are for a lot of the reasons that we like cryptocurrencies in general. It is the monetary policy, self-sovereignty, etc. That same centralization, though, that can make some of those things easier to do might also be a weakness for actually getting it off the ground rather than a strength. On the other hand, there are plenty of reasons to be wary about joining a perfectly monitored economy run by an international juggernaut whose name basically means catalog of identities. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions left, let us know. We'll make more videos to explain anything. And make sure to sign up for our free beta at tigertrading.com.